There's so much lies, there's so much hate, but faith, truth, and love will conquer. When you follow Yeshua Jesus, you can trust him to provide for you like he did for Peter and the disciples. You don't need to live in fear, but live in faith. He will meet all of your needs according to his riches in Messiah, Jesus. He is the great provider, and you can trust that he'll provide for you if you follow his call. Living under Roman occupation was extremely difficult. Rome heavily taxed the nations that it conquered. In this episode of The Chosen, Peter and Andrew are desperately trying not to get crushed under the weight of the taxation of Rome. Peter, not knowing what to do, did the only thing that he could do, take matters into his own hands and go fishing, hoping somehow he could get a great catch of fish that would solve all his problems. Goes fishing all night, he catches nothing. He's fishing at night. He's fishing without the light. That means he's fishing in his own strength, according to his own plans, according to his own purposes, because he doesn't yet have the light of Jesus in his life. See, the word for fish in Hebrew, dog, is also connected to the word for fear, worry, and anxiety. When you fish from a place of fear, when you fish from a place of worry, when you fish from a place of anxiety, your nets are always going to remain empty. Fear is actually a false type of faith. It's the false type of faith that believes that you have the worst possible future ahead of you. In fact, some people say fear is an acronym, false evidence appearing real. When you fish from a place of fear or live from the place of fear, it will rob you of your future. It will rob you of your destiny. And we see so much fear in our nation.
As many as the stars in the heavens. And then what? Huh? Make the chosen as many as the stars. Only to let Egypt enslave us for generations. Bring us out of Egypt. Part the Red Sea. Only to let us wander in the desert for 40 years. Give us the land. Only to let us be exiled in Babylon. Bring us back. Only to be crushed by Rome. This is the God I've served so faithfully my entire life. You're the God I'm supposed to thank. You know, if I didn't know any better, I'd say you enjoy yanking us around like goats and can't decide whether we're chosen or not.
But God doesn't want us to live from a place of fear. The kingdom of this world runs on fear. That's the economy of this world system. Think about the whole political process and all the ads. It was fear politics. It was fear-based. It was fear-motivated. Fear is the opposite of the kingdom. And when you believe the lies, that's what empowers the fears. Fears are fed by lies. And we need to come out of agreement with the lies and come into agreement with faith.
Put that down for a catch. A little farther out.
I don't have a quarrel with you, teacher. We've been doing this all night. Nothing. All right. That's your word.
Yeshua encounters the disciples and he tells Peter to cast the net one more time. And although Peter's reluctant, he does it. And he comes back with this overwhelmingly huge, miraculous, supernatural catch of fish. This was a foundational moment for the disciples. It was really the foundation of the call to discipleship, because Yeshua wanted his disciples to understand that they were leaving everything. They were leaving their profession. They were leaving everything they knew to follow him. That could be really scary, to follow the call. But the great miraculous catch of fish was meant to communicate that they were to move from fear to faith and from faith to trust, that the Lord would always provide for them. And we need to understand God will always provide for you when you trust him and walk by faith. When you live from a place of faith, your nets will always remain full. We need to overcome fear with faith. We need to overcome lies with truth. And we need to overcome hate with love. And more than ever, we need that today. There's so much lies, there's so much hate, but faith, truth, and love will conquer. When you follow Yeshua Jesus, you can trust him to provide for you like he did for Peter and the disciples. You don't need to live in fear, but live in faith. He will meet all of your needs according to his riches in Messiah Jesus. He is the great provider, and you can trust that he'll provide for you if you follow his call.
The boat, it's still coming out! Get out! My brother and the baptizer. You are the Lamb of God, yes?
I am.
Depart from me. I am a sinful man. You don't know who I am and the things I've done.
Don't be afraid, Simon.
I'm sorry. We've waited for you for so long, we believe, but by faith, I'm sorry.
Lift up your head, fisherman.
What do you want from me? Anything you ask, I will do.
Follow me.
I will.
What did Jesus mean when he said, "Follow me"? Why would professional fishermen who spent their whole lives learning a trade and developing a successful business leave everything to follow Yeshua, especially after such a great catch of fish? To understand this, we have to understand the process of discipleship in New Testament times. See, every father had a responsibility to make sure his child learned Torah. Education was not just for the rich, but it was for everyone, because you couldn't be a follower of God if you were ignorant of the scriptures and of God's mitzvot, of his commandments. So at the age of 5, every child began to go to school, and they would go meet with the rabbi, study with the rabbi. They would begin to memorize and learn the scriptures until about the age of 10. Those who did not have the ability to learn or didn't really have an interest, they would go learn a trade, usually their father's trade, his profession. But those that did continued on from about 10 to 14 or 15 years of age in what was known as the Beit Talmud. There they would gain a solid spiritual education that would last them their lives. And at the age of about 15, most of the students would then continue to go on and learn a trade or profession and begin their adult lives. But those who really had a passion for learning and really had a special aptitude, they would go and seek out a rabbi. And the rabbi would test them. He wanted to make sure that they really had the ability to learn, because they would represent him. His rep would be on the line. And so he didn't choose most disciples, only the best. When the rabbi decided that he was going to choose that disciple, he would say, "Come and follow me." And it would have been a huge honor to be selected. Men like Peter and Andrew and some of the other disciples, they didn't make the cut. They went and learned a trade. But you could imagine when they're fishing and Yeshua, who's not just a rabbi, he's the Messiah, what Yeshua Jesus was saying is, "You've made the cut." And they left everything to follow him. I know a little bit about what that would have felt like. I shared a little bit with you about my testimony where I had this supernatural encounter where my soul left my body and I went to heaven and I encountered Jesus. Well, in that encounter, Jesus said, "Many are called, but few are chosen." And I said, "Lord, am I chosen?" He said, "Yes, you're chosen." And the next thing I know, I was down in my body, shaking under the power of heaven in a state of euphoria. And I began to run around saying, "I'm chosen, I'm chosen." I mean, could you imagine what the disciples felt if I felt that way? But the Lord didn't just choose me. He's also chosen you. He's called you to be his disciple. What he's saying is, if you are willing to follow me, you've made the cut. Friends, you've made the cut. You've been hand selected. You have value and worth. The question, though, is, will you follow him?
Rabbi. You as well. Yes, you, James and John. Come, follow me.
I'll take the fish into market and settle up Simon's debt. I'll get some help to fill both of these boats.
Are you sure?
Yes, go!
What will you tell Ima?
You've just been called by the man we prayed for our entire lives, and you ask me, what will I say when you miss supper? Go, now!
So, you sure you don't want to do this just a few more times? Well, we'll make a great team on the boat. Son, joking.
Fish are nothing. You have much bigger things ahead of you, Simon, son of Jonah. Did you understand that parable I told earlier? From now on, I will make you fishers of men, and you are to gather as many as possible, all kinds. I will sort them out later.
We talked about the call of discipleship, but how would the first followers of Yeshua understand the process of discipleship? The word for disciple in Hebrew is talmid. The female form is talmidah. What that Hebrew word literally means is a learner. To become a disciple, a follower of Yeshua, it means you make a commitment to become a lifelong learner, which in Jewish thought is the highest form of worship. That's study. If you really love God, you commit to a life of learning and study. And think about it for a moment. What's the first commandment? To love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. You can't be a lover if you're not a learner. When you love someone, you want to learn everything about them. In fact, that's what keeps a relationship fresh. Whether it's in a friendship or a marriage or in your relationship to God, it is just so significant and meaningful. The first commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. And that is so significant because you can't be a lover of God if you're not a learner. If you really love someone, you want to get to know everything there is about them. If you want to keep a marriage or a relationship fresh, you never stop growing in your understanding of that individual. It's true on a personal level and it's true on a relational level as well. There was once a great rabbi and his disciple came to him and he said, "Rabbi, I love you so much." And the rabbi said, "Do you really think you love me?" He said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Do you know what brings me joy? Do you know what brings me pain in my life? You can't say you love me if you don't know what brings me happiness and if you don't know what brings me sadness." That's why it's so important to be a learner, to keep growing in our understanding of the scriptures and our knowledge of God and his ways. Another key part of discipleship is about taking the yoke. Every great rabbi had a school of discipleship, and his teachings were referred to as the yoke. And the disciples would come to him and they would take on the yoke of discipleship, a commitment to learn every aspect of what he believed and what it is he taught. And when you think about what a yoke is in the natural, in farming, a yoke harnesses the power of a strong animal and it moves it in a direction of purpose and meaning. And that's what the yoke of discipleship is all about. The disciples were being called not just to change their profession, but they were being called to take the yoke, to leave everything and follow Jesus, to disseminate his teachings and make them known to the world. That's why he says, "All you who are weary and heavy laden, come to me and I will give you rest. My yoke is easy." See, discipleship of following Jesus, we're called to take his yoke. We're called to be fishers of men and spread his message to the world.
So, I worked for hours last night, and I couldn't even catch one fish the entire night. And then Andrew and the boys showed up. Thank you for that, by the way. And none of us could catch one fish the entire night. It was horrible. And this morning we finally gave up and we went ashore, but there was this teacher on shore. And Andrew knew who he was, but I'll talk about that later. He told me to cast one more time, which made no sense, but I did it anyway because of the way he looked at me. And then so many fish showed up. They were pouring into the boat. So many kept coming that Zebedee ended up filling both of our boats, enough to pay off the whole debt.
What?
I know.
Why don't you seem happy?
Well, this is hard to explain.
More than what you just told me.
You know, it's like the story of Elijah and Elisha.
Yes?
Elisha was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen when Elijah the prophet just walked up and threw his cloak over him. A calling to follow him.
And without delay, burned the plow and left everything behind.
Yes.
Discipleship is about learning, but it's also about imitation. A disciple was to learn to imitate his rabbi in every single way imaginable. He learned to pray like his rabbi. That's why the disciples asked the question, "Lord, teach me to pray," because that's what disciples did. They wanted to know how their rabbi or their master did it. In every area of their life, how they raised their children, how they ate, how they slept, in everything. You know, I'll never forget when I was young, I used to play a lot of basketball, and my all-time hero was the GOAT in basketball, Michael Jordan. And I'll never forget that song, I wanna be like Mike. I wanted to be like Mike. In fact, when I'd play basketball and try to slam dunk, I'd stick out my tongue because I wanted to be like Mike. Listen, I realize now I'm not called to be like Mike. I am called like you to be like Messiah.
The teacher, Andrew told me, but I didn't believe him at first. He's the Messiah. I know it sounds impossible, but I saw it with my own eyes. He made boatfuls of fish appear out of nowhere. And the words he spoke, the one John told Andrew was the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world, it was him. And then he called me to follow him. And Andrew, James, and John to go where he goes and to learn from him. And he said that I wouldn't be a fisherman anymore, but that I would catch people instead. I don't even know what that means, but I'm sure what I saw. He's the one we've been waiting for all our lives, and I want to quit fishing and leave the sea behind to go. I know it makes no sense, and I knew it would make you upset. All I can tell you is that this is...
Upset. Oh, why would I be upset? Come here. Come here. This is the man I married.
And you believe me?
You couldn't make this up. Of course he chose you.
To be a disciple is about imitation. And that's what it means to follow Yeshua. We're called to leave all for the sake of the call, to learn to live and love like Jesus, spreading his yoke, becoming fishers of men.